Hi, welcome to episode 9 of 5D Tea Time. I'm your co-host, Lindsay Love, and this is...
Crystal Kristen.
So the purpose of these conversations is exploration. It's just to explore different concepts, different ideas, different things that are coming up for Kristen and I every week. So we have a little chat prior to the start of the video, and then we decide, what's most kind of popping up in our minds at the moment. And this week, it was this idea of consumption versus creativity. So, Kristen, I guess I'll first ask you, what do we mean by consumption? And then maybe you can give us a deep dive into what we mean by creativity, or what you mean by creativity, and then I'll chime in later, of course.
Sure. Yeah. So consumption is what we're basically trained to be, especially in the Western world, with all the marketing and advertising targeting us from young children to want objects and things that are being marketed, and that to the child's psychology. So we're like trained from a very early age to be consumers of things, of products. And yeah, it's like a very deep ingrained habit. And we get, when we do consume things, there is this, there's the marketing for the thing, however that comes to us, however that image comes to us. And so there's a built up desire to have that thing. And we like attach, like, oh, I'm going to be happy when I have that thing. Then you get
Mhm.
the thing. And then there's like a little dopamine release. And then it's
Yep.
like, oh, okay, what's next? So it creates
By consuming, right? It's like, oh, what can I consume next? Yeah, it's like the Cookie Monster.
the cookie monster. Yeah, it gets a taste of it and it wants more and more and more. And like we grow, we want bigger toys and better things. And yeah, just more, whether it's, you know, as a woman, as a 40-year-old woman, it's like, oh, all the marketing to have the beautiful vacations with the, perfect everything, or the beautiful house with the perfect everything. Um, yeah, it's all hitting us now, just in millions of directions with technology. But we're groomed from like very early to kind of create that groove of desire and fulfilling that desire, and then that next thing. So as we're in that consumptive pattern, what's really being consumed is our creativity. We're like outsourcing our creativity to the creators of the marketing and the goods. And not only that, it's like, these big marketing firms, they're the ones that pay the money, or Facebook, or they're ones that pay the money and like the good salaries. And those are like they're sucking the creative people, so they're like harvesting creativity to
Yeah.
create things that the consumers want to consume. So it's like all this harvesting of creative energy
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
material, to create this material society. It's a very interesting loop. So to me, that's consumption. It's but it can be so many different things. What is it to you? What's the consumption piece for you?
Distraction. I don't, when we talk, I always get these words. It's weird. Um, Distraction is the word that's coming to mind. And while you were talking, you were referring to mostly like actual tangible goods. And of course, there's a huge spectrum, but I kept thinking of consuming programming. So via television or via technology. And hinted on that a little bit of like the advertisements are just kind of bombarding us from everywhere. And the fascinating thing about these marketing companies is there's a psychological tweaking in their marketing that they utilize to really push that dopamine hit, to really entice someone and draw them in. So there's this form of manipulation that has this depth within the psyche that's quite profound. And then, when you were talking about being programmed from a small, being a small child, and the vision I was having was, being in a store or anywhere of that nature, and a child behind me in the line of at the grocery, and he asks his mother for a candy bar or a toy that's there, and she says no, and he immediately starts screaming, right? Until there's almost this point where the mother gives in, because it has advanced to a point of everyone staring and all the attention's on them, and so obviously that child has undergone some, in my mind, psychological programming of like, I need that thing. Their need and want for that thing is incredibly strong. And so the only thing that I can really attribute that to, not the only thing, but I think that technology and television has a lot to do with that. And it's interesting how television, things are actually called programs. So we see, movies, we see actresses, we see actors, we see advertisements, we see all these things that aren't necessarily real. But our mind can't differentiate between what is real and what isn't. So then it's almost like our reality becomes wanting to be more like what we see within television, or wanting to have more of what the other has, keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with the Smiths. So we see this, and it starts this like programming within the mind, and it's a form of manipulation. And we think that we need to have these things, and it starts from a young child. I mean, children go to school, maybe before school age they never had candy, and then they go to school, and all the kids at school have candy, and so there's the exposure there no matter what. So I feel like the consumption is related to programming, and ultimately it creates a distraction from our natural gifts and abilities. It's a distraction. I mean, even as a child, when children creatively play, right? They're enjoying the moment. They're building a Lego castle, or they have an imaginary friend, or there's a unicorn over there. I mean, how wonderful. But then we put screens and programs in front of them, and I'm not docking anyone who does that, trust me. But that virtual reality then does their creating for them. So I'm coming full circle back to what you were saying, is like, once we give our power away to the creators then create for us, and we lose sight of our creative ability. You can see it very strongly in children. And then there's this weird addiction that happens too from it, where I've seen children utilize screens, and kids are just a great example, right? Because they're like really unimpeded, or not impeded by a lot of things that adults are. But like if they have a screen or a game for an hour or 2 hours, and you want to take that away from them, there becomes this addictive cycle and this lashing out behaviorally because they want that thing back, right? Or there's like this blank stare of kind of exhaustion of being disconnected from reality because there's been so much time virtually. So ultimately, distraction is the word that's really, and disconnect. It's like a disconnect from ourselves, a disconnect from our creativity via this distraction, which is ultimately, manipulation. Mind manipulation is how I see it.
Totally. Totally. I mean, it's
Sorry, that was a total rant. I hope I
no,
made sense.
it's so good. I mean, you're nailing it. You're nailing it on just, yeah, the programming and the addictive, it's like an addictive relationship with that program. It's like almost like the identity starts to blend,
Mm,
with the, like, now we're just talking about basically technology, and these
yeah,
virtual realities or sim cities. People are like designing their life on like this sim game
yeah.
where you can like have a husband, you can have a family, you can have the dream house, and then you're spending more time with that virtual reality than you are actually with your husband or like in your home actually cultivating your landscape. And so the relationship, the amount of time, and the identity is becoming more linked. It's a trend, it's a tendency that this is a possibility, and it is happening for many people. I mean, not us, because we're anchoring in the 5D. Yet, I mean, just to address, yeah, what this consumptive behavior and falling prey to these manipulations of this, you know, the marketing of these technologies and the virtual realities themselves, like that relationship is becoming more real for some people than, or Facebook. It's like the images that people share on Facebook about their lives, they're real events that really happened, yet
Yeah.
like you're interfacing with them is through the computer. It's not like living, breathing, smelling live events where you're actually having the conversation about the thing. You're seeing it all virtually through the screen. So there's the the addiction to like just scrolling, to just visually, I don't know if
Mm,
it's a time occupancy or if it's just like wanting to see. I don't know what neurologically happens, but there is just that the addiction of scrolling too, just and just how much time
mm.
that is like stealing from our lives. I know they have a lot of like, you can do like timeouts on the screens or whatever. They'll track how much, because there's, it's the addiction to it is very yeah, I mean, it can get kind of, scary without going into fear, but it's just knowledge. I mean, the merging of humans with
Mm.
the AI is something that's happening now, and it's quickening, and if people haven't listened or researched on singularity, it's something definitely to know is happening, or the potential of it. Because we think, oh, it's benign, I'm just scrolling on Facebook, I'm just gonna build my little dream house in Sim City and have my dream family or whatever people are doing,
Yeah,
and it seems benign, but what we're giving to this AI and the creators of it is our soul.
our
Like
consciousness.
our
Yeah,
consciousness, we are
yeah.
dripping our consciousness into this, it's a black hole. And like what happens in creation with that black, I mean, that all becomes space dust. So like if we're identifying with that, we're in a lost game, right?
Mm.
So we'll shift into the creativity piece, but I think maybe you have something to say about all that.
Oh yeah, you know I do, girl.
Yeah.
This is my jam right here. Um, where to begin? I mean, without diving, like deep diving into too much of like as they call it, a rabbit hole or black hole. Um, yeah, Kristen and I kind of talked a little bit about this prior to the video, but for me, it's like, where does it stop? Where does the merger of like the psyche, the human psyche, and the technology stop? And like you were saying, this scrolling behavior and just getting lost in the phone or the computer for hours upon end, or the television. Okay, again, not judging, not docking anybody, but where does that end and where does humanness begin? Where does the creativity begin? Because as we disconnect from the screens, from the AI, from the, it could be other addictive behaviors. I mean, it could be work, could be alcohol, could be drugs, could be sugar, could be so many different things, but we're really focused on AI. As we disconnect from that, the accessibility to the creativity is quite quick. It's always there. The consciousness is always there. It's just subdued by these distractions.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, we have these virtual reality headsets. We now have, the watches and the glasses. Okay, so where do we draw the line? And the scrolling seems quite benign, but it's all just a slow, like you graduate levels, like you accept, the scrolling, and then you accept the next thing, and then the gaming, and then the next thing, and then the Sim City. And next thing you know, you're functioning more in virtual reality than you are in humanness, reality, consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And where do we draw that line, and how do we have self-control if there's not even an awareness that it's happening?
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing that Kristen and I talked about before the start of this video was something that I've followed closely that's a little or very concerning to me, actually, is Neuralink, which Elon Musk is the owner of this company. It's a thread basically that they want to insert into the brain, that I think has a piece behind the ear as well, that connects someone to ultimately the World Wide Web, the internet. But I don't know like the dynamics of it fully, but it is an implant in the brain that can be controlled by robotically, by the internet. And it was only in animal testing phases. So I think they did a lot with pigs and monkeys as well. And it's now just been approved to go into the human testing phase. So they will be now, implanting these things into people's brains. And it is a beautiful thing for people who are suffering from like nervous system disorders, maybe even blindness and deafness. I mean, there are amazing things that can occur from this technology, but I can just see the darkness too, that the potentiality of the darkness, and that's incredibly concerning to me. So again, without deep diving into this, where do we draw that line with the merger? And how do we, because technology is beautiful. We're speaking right now on a social media platform, which is beautiful, but where does it kind of take over in our lives, like start consuming us almost?
Well, even with this social media platform, I'm even gonna like slightly be harsh on YouTube, because like, okay, I deleted all apps off my phone because I was like, I felt myself like doing this a lot. And I was like, what is this? Like, what is this brain drain? I'm like brain draining right now. So it's like, it was almost just like automatic that I would pass through the room, and I'd pause, and then like however many minutes would go by that I was just like in this autopilot of checking on things. So I turned off all notifications. And for me, it had to be like somewhat of a hard stop. I mean, I still have the phone, but I deleted all my social media apps on the phone and like got my life back, in a sense, or got that time back. And so since we started these videos, I was like, okay, I probably should put YouTube back on my phone so I can like check in on things and see. And then lo and behold, what do you know? I start scrolling again.
YouTube is my weakness. I scroll there too. Sorry, nowhere else but there.
Scrolling, and I'm like, and then I'm listening to these videos that are interesting. They're interesting videos. But I was down and depressed and deflated maybe depressed is a strong word, but down and deflated, anxious, slightly like just off kilter. I
Mhm.
like my stability was really noticeably because I hadn't had YouTube or social media on here for at least 8 months. So whenever I put it back on, I noticed right
Mm.
away how wobbly it made me. And I was like, nope, that was like 12 hours of YouTube on there and it's back off, because
Girl.
um because I was like, if I want to watch a YouTube, I want to be intentional about it. I'm going to,
Mhm.
open it on my computer, actively seek it out, find the video that I'm, curious about listening into. There's a few people that I like their discourses, and, you know, um, do it that way rather than like the auto ease of just getting into the quickness of the phone and the like always readiness that it's just right there with me. So that was a really powerful awakening. I think it happened last week or the week before, where I was like, whoa, brain drain, big time, and anxiety and negative thinking. And, and these were like decent programs, but they were getting into more of you know, the politics and just some of the, darkness of the cabal and all these things. It's like, okay, real stuff, good to have, the understanding. And yeah, only in selective timing, do I want to um do that research, not just because I'm bored, or like it almost creates boredom. I'm like, I don't ever feel bored without the
Yeah.
technology. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's like here all of a sudden, and I'm just kind of not even breathing and kind of like not even engaged in my surroundings or my life. And it was
Mm.
very disempowering. It's like, boom,
Mm.
okay, there it is. Consumption is a very disempowering,
Mhm.
disempowering of the creative spirit. So that
So
was
my question to you, because I know for me, okay, guilty as charged. I'm a scroller on YouTube, 100%. But I can only watch like inspirational videos and listen to music. So, but yes, I had that awakening maybe 3 months ago. Like the YouTube was the only platform, so social media wise, that I was still using. But occasionally I would listen to a video that just afterwards I was like, oh God, I felt hopeless after listening to some of the stuff. And yeah, it may be very real. And I don't want to live in disillusionment or in an illusion. But at the same time, yeah, energetically, it siphons the energy. And so even with, the positive stuff, it's it's beautiful. But even like this morning, I was on my walk and I'm listening to this really beautiful talk, and it's very inspirational. It's all about energy and the energetic field and manifesting and just good vibes and all the things. But I'm like, I'm at the I'm at the water's edge, and I'm, instead of listening to the lapping of the waves and the birds around, I'm distracted by my phone. So um, yeah, it's a powerful, powerful thing. It's a powerful thing.
yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you have anything more you want to say about consumption, but I'd love to jump on the creativity train now and ask, since you've deleted all these apps, how has your life changed? Because I know for me, I mean, the creative flow is just so much more powerful when not consumed by these things. So how has your life changed? In what ways? What have you noticed most? And what have you been able to create that you maybe weren't before?
Okay, I mean, just to be completely honest, one of my favorite things is just to space out with my thoughts.
I
Like,
love that
I
too.
love
Full love for that. Hmm.
being, right? I love just like, whew. just unwinding and observing and being with my food, because a lot of times it's like with tea or food that I'm, social mediaing. And I also like, I'm like, oh, but Facebook, that's where my sisters post the, pictures of my nieces and nephews. I love texting and asking them like, hey, what's been happening? Send me a couple photos, I'm not on Facebook, like update me, or I'm just gonna pop down there. I'm gonna get down, down to your place because I'm craving them. I'm not just satisfied with these images, like, oh, I'm up to date with their lives. I'm like, no, I want to be around them and engage with them and just hear their laughter and be silly with them. So if anything, it's freed up my inspired action, my inspiration to take action and like make real contact with my family. And yeah, mostly with my family, I guess, because that would be my excuse to still stay on social media, would be to stay updated with them.
Yeah.
And also with, beloved other healers that I've connected with through social media platforms. I text them, I actually have a conversation with them. I don't like, oh, I wonder what they're up to. Well, why don't I just reach out actually
Yeah.
and just
Engage.
passively receive what they're putting out? So yeah, just staying in real engaged, because the social media, it's like very isolating. We can just be like, oh, we're interfacing through the likes and the shares and whatever, but we're not actually engaging with the person. So yeah, I just going old school through the telly, and that's not even that old school, I mean, the old school, the
So,
telepathy.
so not only like creativity, which all of this kind of is, but it's the actual like deepening of relationships.
Right, which the technology is leading us towards isolating and not being in relationship, right, but only being in relationship with it, so it can
Yeah.
so we can be controlled and we can be consumers and feed the system that relies on us to sustain it, right? And so actually being, connected with people and community,
Mm,
more of that just direct, loving engagement.
I
Yeah,
love that. It's so true.
more quiet time too, more quiet
Mm,
time, because these devices do, put off radiation, right? And so that is a part of like the fuzz and the brain fog, is like the
mm,
emissions. So, there is just like this, ooh, like breath from the EMF fuzz. For a
mhm.
lot of sensitives, like really
And
feel.
that can be challenging at first, that initial detox from the phone and from the social media and from all of it. I mean, just the checking of the phone, even if it's not social media, you know,
Yeah.
the quiet time, I feel like just like anything else from sugar or any other addiction, there is this detox phase,
Mm-hmm.
like almost like in the beginning, like the quiet time is uncomfortable, it's like, oh, I should be doing something, and if I have my phone in my hand, I'm doing it, even if it's like mindless scrolling kind of thing. um so yeah, it's very, very, very interesting, very interesting.
I heard, or I saw this, a woman every morning sends positive affirmation text to me. Very, very cool thing she's done for years. And yesterday, I think it was, she's like, I don't have FOMO, for fear of missing out. I have JOMO, joy of missing out.
Exactly.
I'm like, that's the best, because it does like when we shut it down, it just like creates space. It's like, wow, we can really just vibe with
Mhm.
life and feel ourselves, and actually like tune into that like true desire that we were born with, which was to share our gifts, our soul's gifts with this world. I know we all have that spark in us, and it's all distracting from that like core essence, that spark that's like wants to create and bring joy to the world in the special way that each of us are coded to do. So, yeah, the joy of missing out affords us just more time and space to be like uniquely us, not homogenized into what these platforms have programmed with their, with their code. We're not just like programmed code, we're like soul code. We have very beautiful, sacred geometric templates that it's like, oh, when we start really creating from that space and like tuning into that and just feeling good about like just being here. Yeah. Like, do we even need to do anything other than just enjoy like being here? What if we could just like just bliss out and enjoy, all of us? So much would just creatively emerge from that. Yeah.
Okay, I have two things. Can I jump in?
Tell me. Yeah.
Okay, so I did a video a long time ago on my other channel called The Difference Between a Human Being and a Human Doing. And it's just so funny that you brought that up, because it's like, we're human beings. We came here to be. But instead, we're so caught in this cycle of doing and consuming that it's so hard to just be. And just being in that and having that space, like you said, like just the joy of the space, that's where the seed of creativity lies.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I know I've told you this before, but like sometimes I'm such a doer, so I get caught in that cycle very easily, guilty as charged. But I like being as well, but I more naturally do. I have to, change that wiring. But anyway, so for me, when I have a shower, I have all of these like creative thoughts come in. They're just like boom, 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 boom. And sometimes I have to stop the shower and like grab my phone and write stuff down for creative ideas, because it's like that moment in time throughout the day where I've stopped doing and I'm just being. And that's where the creativity is, right? Like the being, the beingness, the space, the stopping and just being a human being, rather human doing. And then the creativity just floods in. And it's incredibly magical. And so to be able to access that more often and live our lives in that manner, that's 5D.
Yeah. 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 Because the creative channel does just open and flood us. And yeah, so many ideas. And it's like just kind of floating around up there. And when we give the space, they just start to like plop into us because we're quiet enough to hear them, receive them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So good. So good. Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that, Kristen. So you finish up if need be, but I think I'm complete here.
Yeah, good. Yes. I mean, I love what we're doing here because it is like being on the creative end of the social media. We like create and share, and I'm inspired by other creators, on YouTube for sure, and Rumble, Telegram, people sharing some really cool information that is like very expanding and anchoring at the same time of just knowledge and the true history of our life on earth. There's so much good, interesting information out there, and it's like there's a way to access from an empowered, centered place rather than just habitual, addictive, programmed, place. There's definitely a difference, and you'll know, we can feel the difference in our behavior. So I would just really encourage everybody to self-monitor and really shift habits, empower yourself to shift habits with the technology and let it work for you and not it harvest your soul, because that's what it's doing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing, and I'd like to maybe speak about this more on a further video, but like using your emotional system as a guidance system.
Oh, that's a good, let's do that next week.
Yeah, but tapping into your emotions. How do you feel after you consume that thing? How do you feel after you've sat there for an hour and scrolled on Pinterest? I mean, it's beautiful. There's lots of like beautiful inspiration on Pinterest, but do you feel inspired? Do you, yeah, it's just, it's monitoring, and maybe people do, and that's beautiful, but monitoring how we feel is such a powerful statement to what's like what we're creating, because we are creator beings. So
Yeah, let this world work for you, you know,
mm,
more than just, yeah, you blindly giving to it. Yeah.
ooh, that's
Yeah.
powerful.
Okay.
Okay.
So much love.
Like, share, subscribe if you feel inspired. We're just so grateful that
Yeah.
you joined us today.
Thanks for
And
being.
until next time, bye.
Bye.